for the NBA. Quote, I think it's all great for our league. Our league is very competitive. I think every decision is different. My decision to leave Cleveland, to go to Miami, and then go back is different from Kevin Durant leaving OKC and going to the Warriors. Stephen A., the question here is, do you think LeBron really believes this is a good thing, this move for basketball?
I'm going to answer this directly. I think LeBron James has no choice but to believe it. I think LeBron James has no choice but to echo and articulate that he believes it, because he's the one that opened the floodgates. Essentially, some would sit there and say KG, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Rondo, but that was Danny Ainge pulling off trades, okay? This is different. LeBron James got up and left and joined D. Wade and Chris Bosh in Miami. So how in the hell are you going to complain about Kevin Durant going to Golden State? Of course he can't. Of course he won't. Having said all of that, it's some things that are incredibly important to recognize here. Let me say this about LeBron James. LeBron James believes that if the Cleveland Cavaliers get all the crew back, the players and the coaches, they could beat the Golden State Warriors. It's not like he believes that they need to bow down to the altar of the Golden State Warriors. As far as he's concerned, he's ready for the trilogy. Let's get it on. That's number one. Number two, the Cleveland Cavaliers need to be put on notice. David Griffin is a person that I'm very, very fond of, Max. He's the general manager of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think he's done a very good job with this team, and he deserves a lot of credit for helping to assemble this championship team. But let me look into the camera when I say this to David Griffin. You and Dan Gilbert need to get the hell on the board. You need to re-sign J.R. Smith immediately. You need him. You need to make sure this team is intact. And by the way, Tyronn Lue ain't the only coach out there that you needed to make sure has his extension. Yes, you took care of Tyronn Lue, but he's got assistants that are not being paid, assistants that haven't had their contracts solidified. You need the whole crew together when you're going up against Golden State, because KD, Steph, Clay, Draymond, and them are coming back for what they believe is theirs. Had Draymond Green not got suspended for Game 5, and then Andrew Bogut got hurt in Game 5, and then Andre Iguodala went down in Game 6. You got to get it together, keep the team intact, get those contracts right, keep everybody in place, and go forward again. Back to LeBron. LeBron has earned the right. And I used to say this a couple of years ago, Molly, if you remember. Max, I've gotten to the point where I give LeBron no criticism whatsoever outside of questioning MJ in any way. I give him no criticism whatsoever for anything that happens prior to the postseason. I think his level of greatness, combined with his level of commitment, combined with the exemplary individual he is as a role model and an ambassador as a professional athlete, he is as close to flawless as they come. And I believe he has earned the right for us not to nitpick at him and just bloviate excessively about things he may say or do. He's earned the right for us to look at him and say, we'll talk to you. We'll talk about you in May. There's nothing to talk about because he's LeBron. Having said all of that, I believe, and I've been told, he believes they could beat the Golden State Warriors. And in the end, that's what it comes down to. He can't have a problem with Kevin Durant going to Golden State because he went to Miami. But it is also important to make out this last point. We're living in a day and age, my boy Champ and others point this out to me all the time, where you got teams that intimidate people. Back in the day, it was individual players that intimidate people. You respect the greatness of LeBron. You respect the greatness of Kevin Durant. You don't fear them. You fear the teams that they play with. And that is how the game has changed and evolved. That's kind of a disappointment to me because I like it when individual players instill fear in you. I think Steph Curry was doing that a little bit this year when he was just throwing up shots and they were going in. But that's the closest I've seen to fear since Kobe in his heyday.
Well, I mean, part of that's the rules changes and the game adapted.
Yes.
Zone defenses and no hand checking and everything, and all of a sudden the spread pick and roll became dominant, starting with D'Antoni and really exploiting three-point shots and superior shooting, all that stuff. I think not only does LeBron believe it, I think he's right when he says that it's good for the NBA for Kevin Durant to go to the Warriors. Now, let's start with LeBron James. This is where we do agree. You can't judge him in the regular season. because he is wise enough at this stage in his career to know that the actual MVP of the league does not occur until the last game of the postseason is played.
All right, but where do you disagree?
This is a league where you have 30 teams, 16 make the playoffs. That means over 50% of the teams make the playoffs.
We agree with that.
An MVP is never going to come from a non-playoff team.
We agree with that.
So LeBron paces himself and then turns it on in the postseason on both ends of the floor.
Okay.
He's been the MVP the last 2 seasons. I don't care what the official award said.
Where's the disagreement?
The disagreement is that you seem to be saying it's not actually good for the NBA.
I don't think it's good.
For Durant to go to the Warriors.
I don't think it's good.
When, in fact, I think it's excellent. Basketball is not football or baseball. Football and baseball are fundamentally probabilistic by nature. What do I mean by that? Best team doesn't always win in football. There are too few games and too many random occurrences that can influence the outcome of a game, including some ref's call. Best team doesn't always win during March Madness. A one-and-done tournament, no. But in basketball, where the best players, in spite of the rule changes, still still dominate the outcome and dominate play, and you run your plays through them more often than anyone else. In the NBA, where you have a best-of-7 series, given those circumstances, best team wins, period.
But what? Look,
so,
you're driving me crazy. Let me tell you something, Max. This is not boxing. And what I mean by that is that even when you knew Mike Tyson was going to knock out Peter McNeely, you got enjoyment from that, okay? I don't know about you, but we're looking forward to an 82-game schedule. You know what bothered me about the championship game, the gold medal game yesterday? You know what bothered me about it?
Foregone conclusion after the middle of the second half.
Not just that.
Second quarter.
You know what bothered me about it? I'm not going to lie to you, and I didn't bring this up earlier. You know what depressed me about yesterday's game? I found myself, I literally was watching the game like this.
That's
and
not
you know
going
why?
to be the case.
Let me tell you why. Because I said a vast majority of this season, that's what's going to be the Golden State Warriors games.
That's what it was already last year, and you can hold out the Thunder as the wild card in the West, which they were. The only team in the West, really, that you thought were going to beat Golden State, it wasn't the Spurs. They were getting older. Aldridge wasn't a perfect fit. Was the Thunder, and they came close. That was the only wild card. I admit that with Durant on the Warriors, given health, that's no longer there. The regular season is a foregone conclusion, as is the playoffs.
That's 82 games in 6 months.
In the West and the East. I will trade that for the following. Since we basically know who's coming out of the West and the East every year anyway, 1 or 2 teams. I will trade that for an historically great rubber match between 2 unstoppable forces in the East and the West, between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Warriors.
You're a horrible sports fan.
I love
my
super fights.
Lord.
This is
you
a super
gotta be
fight.
kidding me. I mean, so in other words, Stephen A, don't sweat it. It's no big deal. Because, you know, he gonna get the trilogy in June. So in other words, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, 8 months. I gotta sit back there and go like this. I gotta sit up there and go, yeah, whatever. Come on, man. And by the way, you keep being disrespectful to the San Antonio Spurs. Last year, we know that the Golden State Warriors ran roughshod over them during the regular season. The combination of Pop with Kawhi and LaMarcus in the NBA playoffs, where they call games a bit looser, allow you to be a bit more physical, even though you predicted that Golden State would be a favorite. Whether it was Golden State or Oklahoma City, you did get the sense and the impression that a series could be made of it, and Oklahoma proved that because they took...
A series could be made, but you never would pick the Spurs to win the series.
But I'm not talking about... There's always a favorite, and there's always somebody that you're looking forward to winning. I am talking about this season potentially being an annihilation, man.
By the way,
annihilation.
Since you know the outcome anyway, why not watch an annihilation? Why not watch Mike Tyson knock everyone out in the first round?
I'm not saying that I won't watch it in November, but by Christmas, am I going to be interested? No.
Okay, hold on.
That's my problem.
Let's talk about what a real super fight is, okay, in boxing, and then we'll get to the NBA. In boxing, it can't be promoted into existence. A real super fight. When there are 2 people left standing, that's your super fight. Ali and Frazier, Mayweather and Pacquiao, super fight, right? This is one of those circumstances. You look in the East, just like the last 2 seasons, you knew no one was going to stop the Cavs. Did that make the NBA season unenjoyable to you? You knew no one had anything for the Cavs in the East. You still watched. You still enjoyed it. Now it's the same circumstance in the West. Yes, it's a little less dramatic, obviously, during the regular season.
Max.
But in the finals, you are going to have the unstoppable force in Golden State versus LeBron James, who just pulled off a miracle against them this year.
You pulled off a miracle because I talked about stripping you of your football card. I'll be damned if you don't deserve to have your basketball card stripped. I don't even understand you. There's 2 sports. I'm like this. Do you really care about watching sports? Listen, Max, if it's boxing, it could be horse racing. Guess what? We got 2 minutes. But, Max, I'm talking about 6 months, 7 months, 8 months of lopsided play where I'm looking at it, and it's all because you chose to go to a team that was already riding the train.
When Michael Jordan was in his prime, was there any real doubt when he had Pippen and Rodman, for example, the second time around, anyone was going to stop him?
Well, the second time around is a little bit different. But even back then, okay, when you looked in the Eastern Conferences, you saw Indiana coming, and the Knicks, let me finish, and the Knicks still relevant. Here's what the problem was. You didn't question Michael Jordan, but you did question the Bulls.
No, you didn't.
Oh, yes, you did. Oh, you did.
Yes, you did. Because we were Knicks fans. We had to.
You questioned.
You think Clippers fans aren't going to question it the same way Knicks fans did back then? They're deluded like we were, but they're still going to question it.
You just said the Clipper fans are deluded. See, this is why I got to strip you of your basketball card. You just said, you think the Clippers fans don't know they're going to lose?
Yeah, I think Clippers fans think they got a shot.
No, I didn't say think they got a shot. You think they don't know in their heart hearts. They've been losing forever. In your heart hearts,
when you were a Knicks fan, you thought Ewing and Oakley were going to beat Jordan and Pippen.
You know why? But you know why I thought that? Because I thought that they would beat them up, and that as a result they would beat them up, that maybe, just maybe, they could get inside of the heads of people other than Michael Jordan, and those other guys would let them down.
When was it that you realized you were wrong? Was it the first, second, or third championship the first time, or the first, second, and third championship the second time?
The first, second, and third championship the second time.
So it took 5 championships. No. Somewhere in the second repeat. You were like, this keeps happening.
No, the first repeat, I actually believed it. I thought in 1994, 1995, Michael Jordan was gone, okay? Then he came back with
That's where Clippers fans are now.
Then he came back from 17 games with 17 games left. Yep. They lost in the Eastern Conference Finals to Orlando. They didn't have Dennis Rodman on that roster. And I thought at that particular moment in time, there was vulnerability, but Orlando proved it, not the Knicks.
I will give you the Clippers argument. We've been hurt the last couple of years in the playoffs, haven't had the whole crew. First it was Chris Paul, then it was,
with DeAndre Jordan shooting 40% for free throws.
Then it was Blake
Griffin. Jordan shooting 40% for free throws.
Best player.
With DeAndre Jordan shooting 40% for free throw line.
Shaq shot around 50% from the free throw.
He just mentioned DeAndre Jordan the same breath as Shaq. Do you want me to take your basketball card right now? Because security. Do you want me to take your basketball? You just mentioned DeAndre Jordan in the same breath as Shaquille O'Neal.
You really want me to do that? A center doesn't have to shoot free throws to win a championship.
Really?
Hey, the Detroit. I remember Mark Cuban saying Detroit will never win a championship because Wallace can't hit it. Ben Wallace can't hit his free throws. What happened? They won a championship and Ben Wallace didn't hit his free throws.
Wait a minute. But see, once again, basketball card stripped.
I don't know. You sound like pretty good points to me.
Chauncey, they had Rip, they had Rasheed Wallace, they had Tayshaun, they had Lindsey Hunter. They had a very good bench and an exceptional coach where Ben Wallace, all he had to do was all he had to do was rebound and defend. On the Clippers, you got CP3, you got Blake Griffin, you got Boogie himself. You talk about Jamal Crawford, you got JJ Redick, but you're not deep. You're not deep on the Clippers.
Right.
You're not deep.
Stephen A. Of course they're not going to beat the Warriors, just like, of course, the Knicks weren't going to beat the Bulls. But just like we were deluded Knicks fans, they'll be deluded Clippers fans out there.
I'm fearful that the Golden State Warriors are going to ruin the opportunity for us to even talk about basketball.
Who's going to win the finals? Who's going to win the finals?
I haven't decided that yet.
Okay, this is what I'm saying. You have one of the sickest squads ever assembled in Golden State.
I'm talking before the finals.
They just won 70.
I'm talking before the finals.
I'm talking the finals. They just won 73 games.
I don't care about the finals.
You don't care about the finals?
Not yet.
That's the whole shooting match.
Not yet.
Every year you know what the finals are going to look like, but this time you don't know who's going to win.
Because you were sitting in Southern California, chilling in the sunshine, chilling out, and now you're in Bristol. I have to travel to these games, and the conclusion is decided. I'm bored already. So if the Clippers are playing San Antonio, it's not interesting. Doesn't move me right now. Doesn't.
Because the Warriors are good?
Because of what Kevin Durant did by going to Golden State.
And by the way, one
Gentlemen,
last thing about LeBron James.
Go. Yeah.
You can't count Cleveland out because
I'm not counting them out.
I'm not saying you are, but first when the whole squad was hurt, he took them 6 games with a sick finals. Well, what happens if he has help? They fall down 3-1 and come back and win. This is going to be one of the greatest finals in the history of basketball.
It's irrelevant.
We gotta go to break.
The finals are irrelevant? I thought that was the whole point.
Yes. Until June, yes.
Not irrelevant to me.
Very entertaining debate, but we need to take a hard left turn here. A very serious conversation that we need to have. The NFL has suspended Giants kicker Josh Brown for a game. Is it harsh enough? Herm Edwards back with us. Max and Stephen A. We'll discuss it next.